Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Penalty. I'm your host, Trevor Cherney. I'll be honest here. I don't really want to do the show today for various reasons. It has everything to do with my sports teams just falling down a flight of stairs all weekend long. If you're my baseball team, my football teams, as in college and pro, I mean, just one thing after another, nothing going right this weekend. Absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. And honestly, probably the worst weekends in all of Michigan sports, in the history of Michigan sports. I'm not going to say it's like I would argue that the weekend that the Lions blew their lead in the NFC Championship game at halftime, that was still worse than this. This is top 5, though. This has to be top 5 worst weekends in Michigan sports history. I mean, where do we even start with our teams? You know, let's go in order. Actually, you know what? Why not? Let's go in order of what happened this weekend. And you know what? Actually, for the most part, I had a good weekend. Had a very nice weekend. Spent a lot of time with my family, and things of nature. I just, I had a really good weekend, aside from watching my sports team play, actually. So that's when it became, not so much fun. So let's start. You know what? Let's give the Wings 5 minutes of airtime. So let's give the Wings 5 minutes. Because for the two people that want me to talk about the Wings, I'll talk about the Wings for a second, okay? So the Red Wings, they came out of their first game and they couldn't win. They didn't look very good. Overall, it was just a complete, utter mess. But then their second game, they actually turned on their offense and they actually were able to score some goals, which was nice. So, look, my thoughts on the Wings. This year, they have to get in the playoffs, okay? If Stevie Y still wants to collect a paycheck from the Wings, if he still wants to be here, it's now or never for him, right? Now he has to get himself in the playoffs, okay? And honestly, there's just not a whole lot to talk about this team right now, okay? With the Red Wings. They're just not, okay? I guess they're okay for right now. Look, if you want to be interested, win, I don't know, 6 of your next 8. Then I'll be interested, okay? And that's not even asking a lot, okay? I'm not asking you to go on this miraculous winning streak, right? I'm just asking you to win 6 of 8 of your next 8 games, right? It can't be that hard, okay? Even just give me 5. Just give me 5. Just give me some hope for this team, okay? That's all. So the Wings, I guess they're okay for now. And like I said, quite honestly, there isn't a whole lot to talk about with the Wings, okay? And I have so much to get through today, but they're fine, okay? Now we get to the Tigers. Oh boy. I don't know what to say about this. All I can say is the season, the performance that happened on Saturday, just disappointing. That's all I can say. And that's a great way to put in this season perspective. Just disappointing. Not good enough. And honestly, what they did last year, they just didn't build off of it, at least enough, as they should. And they just decided, look, we're just going to play this long game of let's just wait for the kids. They don't do nothing practically at the trade deadline except gets Chris Paddock and Charlie Morton, which, by the way, I hated when the Orioles made that signing to Charlie Morton. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're signing this guy for, even if it's just $7 million, you're signing this guy for $7 million who could barely pitch the year before. You got to be kidding me. I left the Orioles when they made that signing. And then guess what? My president of baseball operations, Scott Harris, who is a self-described genius in baseball or savant or whatever, decided it had the great idea to say, hey, you know what? Let's go out and trade for 40-year-old Charlie Morton. Why not? Yeah, how did that work out exactly, huh? he wasn't even on the team when the playoffs came around. So there you go. I mean, at this point, it is what it is. Look, it was a great game Saturday. The pitching, they did the best they could, but this offense is horrendous. I mean, how? So get this. So your second batting order, all the way to the fifth. Okay, so your second and fifth spot. Your second all the way to the fifth spot in that order. Get this. They were collectively combined 0 for 23. That's Gleyber Torres, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, and Colt Keith. They were all a collective 0 and 23 in the game. And guess what? Maybe one of them just had a huge hit in that game, in extras or whatever. Maybe one of them had a huge hit. Maybe the Tigers be playing the ALCS right now. Maybe. Just maybe. Look, I'm not going to get into the future things right now with the Tigers and this and that. We'll get into more because, like I said before, we have a pretty busy show today, so there's a lot to get to today, and there's not a lot of time. So, but for the Tigers, look, they have to do something this offseason. And they got to figure out what they're going to do with Skubal. Either you give him an extension or you trade him. That's how it should come down to, okay? And I'm fine with either or at this point. Because after you waste a great performance like that from Skubal, I mean, quite honestly, he deserves better than this. What a disgraceful, disgusting performance from that offense on Saturday. And there's no other way to put it. No other way to put it. It's completely and utterly awful, the type of performance you get from that offense. And shout out to Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter, man, he was the most consistent player in the playoffs besides Javi Baez. Think about that. Even Javi Baez had a really sneaky, nice postseason. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, he had his swings and misses and whatnot, but man, he came through. Man, he had some big hits. Where's Torkelson? Huh? Where's Riley Green? Huh? Where's Gleyber Torres? Where's Colt Keith? Where's Parker Met? Come on, guys. Like, at one point or another, one of you have to show up for a game like this, and they just couldn't, okay? And that was their downfall, okay? I really can't blame pitching when the pitching did the best they could in extras going to 15 innings. That's a lot to ask for your pitching staff to keep the game tied when your offense can't do nothing going to the 15th inning. Think about that. 5 hours into the game. Or just about 5 hours. It wasn't exactly 5 hours, but it was just about 5 hours. So I think it was just under 5 hours actually. So how long the game lasted. Yeah, I mean just a really disappointing end of the season. Really disappointing trade that just overall I would just describe this season as a gigantic disappointment first and foremost. Just not good enough. Not good enough whatsoever. All right. So that's the Tigers, right? Let's get to our local college teams, that being Michigan State and Michigan. Don't worry, we'll get to Michigan especially. I said on Friday that, look, as long as MSU has a pulse, they should be able to beat UCLA, even if it's just by 3 or 7 points, right? And at that point, whatever. You won at least. You're favored to win. Like, it's at home. It's homecoming. You should be able to win this one, right? No. They get their doors blown off. That stadium was practically empty by the end of that game. Mind you, this is homecoming, by the way. Homecoming. And the best you can do is lose to UCLA 38-13. That's the best you can do in homecoming? Really? Look, I already said that Jonathan Smith need to be fired, and this just helps prove my point. How do you lose to UCLA? How? They fired their coach 2 weeks ago. They fired him. And now they look like a completely different team, and now they look like the 2019 LSU team? Come on. Are we serious? It shouldn't be that tough. Come on. It's UCLA. They're not that good this year. They were winless up until a week ago. They were winless. They didn't have a single win on the season. You were favored in this game by I think you were favored by 7.5 points, something like that. You were still favored, and you didn't just lose. You got absolutely trounced, and you got absolutely embarrassed on homecoming, no less. Like, is this where we are with Michigan State? Huh? Relegated to this? Huh? Come on. Jonathan Smith, he needs to go. First of all, watching him paint dry is more fun than watching his press conferences. I'm not even joking. If you've seen one of his press conferences, it's absolutely just I can't watch more than a minute of it. Honestly, it's so boring. He has no personality. There's no charisma. There's no nothing, and you wonder why no one wants to play for this guy. You really wonder. I wouldn't want to play with him. Honestly, James Franklin, who just got clipped over at Penn State, who's now gone, who's now unemployed. I would rather play for James Franklin, who is currently not employed, than Jonathan Smith. I'm not even joking. As much as I dislike James Franklin, at least he can win some games. At least he could win games that he was supposed to, right? Well, okay, I know they just lost to UCLA a week ago, but still. That whole situation's a mess, right? My point stands, I can't stand Jonathan Smith at this point. And I hope he goes. I hope that after the season, they're like, hey, look, we appreciate you coming in, but things are not working out. We got to let you go. I'm sorry. See, that won't happen. See, I'm afraid that won't happen because they're like, oh, Jonathan, he's a nice guy. He's this and that. And, oh, golly, OG, why would we let him go? And, he's still trying to build his program. And just stop with the nonsense. Just get rid of this cat. Seriously. Get him out of here. He's garbage. Guy can't recruit. Guy can't go in the transfer portal to get offensive linemen, defensive linemen, get any defense. He's got to go. And now he's losing recruits like crazy. He's got to go. I'm sorry. You got to get rid of this guy. You have to. It's unacceptable in East Lansing right now. Unacceptable. It's not a good product whatsoever. And the worst part is, I'm not even sure if they're going to win a game for the rest of the year. There's a pretty good chance they might just go lose winless through the rest of the year. I can totally see that happening. And it's incredibly unfortunate. It really is that it has to be that way. But unfortunately, at this point, it is what it is. Okay, Michigan. Michigan lost. Sorry. They lost 31-13 to USC. See, this is what Michigan didn't want to happen. Because now, with their 2 losses, and at the end of the season, you're staring down the barrel of Ohio State. I mean, that's a loss. Like, oh, we beat Michigan, we beat Ohio State though the last 4 seasons though because Ohio State they suck. They're a loser program. Ryan Day's a horrible coach. Is he really? Look, Ryan Day's a lot of things, right? And one of the things he can't do is be Michigan right now, okay? He's got to be Michigan, okay? But besides that, though, he's a top coach in America right now. He's right there with Kirby Smart. He's right there. He's one of the finest. He's one of the great coaches right now in America. He's won a lot of games. He's won national titles, or at least a national title. And this team looks really good again this year, and they look to be poised to win back-to-back national titles this year. Julian Sayin, their quarterback, looks really good right now. Yeah, he's got a good offensive line. Yeah, he's got a good lot of. Yeah, he's got he's got good weapons around him. But see, that's the thing. Ryan Day, he knows you have to build around your young quarterbacks, right? He knows that. Give him a good offensive line, you give him weapons, and you make it as comfortable as possible to have a chance to win every single week. And see, that's not what Michigan is doing. Look at Bryce Underwood, freshman quarterback. Look at that offensive line. Look at that protection. Look at what happens when you don't have Justice Haynes as your tailback. Look at the weapons he has. I don't know how with Michigan, they refuse to build around Bryce Underwood, okay? It's a failure, okay? I have no problem with him. I have no problem with Bryce starting, okay? You pay the man, he should be starting, okay? You can't just have $4 million on the bench. You just can't, okay? It's fine if you want to pay him, and it's fine if you want to take risk. It's fine, okay? But you also have to put him in the best situation to succeed, and Michigan just isn't doing that with its offensive line, with its weapons, which is just laughable. I mean, some of the receivers out there. And I know Andrew Marsh is a nice piece, but again, he's a nice piece. Where's their Jeremiah Smith? Huh? Where is their Ryan Williams on this team? They're just not there. And that's a failure. And especially when you have, when you are starting a freshman quarterback, you want to make sure that the pieces around him can help him, can help Bryce succeed at the highest level possible. And they're just not doing that with the offensive line, with his receivers. I mean, and then with his defense, giving up the most rushing yards since 2020. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. It was actually 2017, I believe, with Ohio State. 2008, it was either 2018, 2017. I mean, it's just disgraceful. And now with having 2 losses already on the year, you're going to lose to Ohio State. That's 3 losses. I mean, if you lose another game, it's over. You have to basically go and win every single one of your games until you face Ohio State at the end of the year, if you want any chance in the playoffs. Because even with 3 losses, I could work my way around, okay, well, maybe they could get in the playoff. Maybe. Because it is Michigan. It is a brand, I quite frankly, they would rather have Michigan in the playoffs than some other teams that are not a brand name, right? That's just how it works. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in, right? I don't know. We'll see, though. We will see with Michigan. Just not a good showing, though. Just terrible. And again, you're not helping Bryce whatsoever. And that's my main problem is it's fine if you want to start a freshman quarterback, right? That's not a problem. I don't have a problem with it. That's fine. But when you go out and when you don't do anything to help him around, with a good offensive line, and to help at least have good receivers, good weapons around him, you're not going to give him a chance to succeed in playing with Michigan. You're just not. Look what I mentioned with Julian Sayin in Ohio State. This is Julian's first year as a starting quarterback. and he looks like one of the top quarterbacks in America. So, and compare that to Bryce. It's not even close. And I'm not saying Bryce is good. That's not the case. But it's about helping and insulating your freshman first time starting quarterback in college football. That's what it's about, okay? It's not questioning whether he can do it or not, because clearly he has the talent to. Clearly he can. But you need pieces around him to help him. That's how you win. And if you don't have the pieces around you, you're not going to win. End of story. You can have the best quarterback out there. If you don't have the pieces around to help you win, you're not going to win. So that was my 2 cents on Michigan. Their season's not quite over yet. Their playoff hopes, while slim, are still alive-ish. But this loss doesn't help at all. And now if they lose another game here and now, man, that would be brutal. And that would be just that would be that would pretty much that would be their season right there. And then look, if they miss the playoffs this season, you would really have to question Sharon Moore's future as the head coach of Michigan Wolverines. I think at that point you really have to. I'm not saying you should fire him now, but things are going great as of right now. So that's Michigan. And now let's talk about Lions and Chiefs. Oh boy. Where do I start? I would say the most disappointing thing about this game, and I listened to a little bit of Dan Campbell's press conference a little bit, and I actually agreed with most of what he said. And I actually really liked his press conference. He seems really you can just tell from his tone and his body language. It just screams that he's just incredibly disappointed by his team's performance, and that's how I would say, that's how I would categorize this game is just disappointing. A disappointing effort from the offense. And we know going into this game that the defense was banged up, right? The secondary was banged up. We're missing basically most of our corners, and we had guys off the street who were filling in and whatnot. I know Rocky Yassin was out there. Yeah, I know he's still in the league, right? Yeah, it just wasn't good, and it was just really disappointing, and just a really disappointing effort from this really hot Detroit Lions team. And look, it was always going to be a bad spot, right? It was always going to be a bad spot. Sunday night at Arrowhead last week, they lost a bad game to Jacksonville. This was and look, the Chiefs played their best when they're questioned. And that's just who this team is, right? When you have people questioning, is this the Chiefs team still the Chiefs at the end of the day? My answer is yes. They're going to be good. Look, they're going to be just fine. They're going to be good. They get Rashee Rice back. Their schedule is not incredibly difficult. They should be fine. They'll probably still be at least the mix in the AFC. Most definitely. I mean, it's not a particularly great year for competitive football. There's not a lot of great outstanding teams this year, And look, for the Lions, I mean, I'm not going to freak out. I kind of did overreact last night, and that's why I don't do these shows right afterwards or right after games, because, yeah, it is a bit emotional, and you get a little emotional, and I got really emotional last night, obviously, watching the game. I'm just like, maybe this team just isn't good. And no, I mean, look, obviously the Lions were still very good. I still firmly believe that they're still a really good team. They just had a bad game, a bad showing, bad performance. I'm really questioning this team's performance, though, on the road this year. Because a lot of the games on the road just haven't been all that impressive. And I know that's just the NFL. It's tough, right? Going in Arrowhead on Sunday night, that's a tough place to play. No excuses. It was a bad loss. It is. It's a bad loss. And Brian Branch, man, what were you thinking? I know the play that happened before with Juju. Yeah, I know things should have been done differently there. I get it. But come on, man. That's no reason to go out there and come on. Because when you do stupid stuff like that, right, now there's a possibility because of his history with that kind of stuff before. There's now a great chance that he actually might get suspended for the Bucs game. And that's a game that we definitely need Brian Branch in, okay? We need him for the Bucs game. And the fact that he may not play because of what he did is inexcusable. And I totally agree with Dan Campbell, what he said about Brian Branch. It's not what the Lions should do. It's not what they do here. And it's inexcusable. And honestly, if he does it again, he should be off this team. Again, Brian Branch is a great player. There's no question the kind of player he is, okay? You got to be better than that, though. Come on, dude. You got to be better than that. You can't be doing stuff like that because then you run into issues of hurting yourself and the team at the end of the day. Like, we need you, dog. We need you. And going out there and doing dumb stuff like that, I get the games get really – it was a really emotional game. Things didn't go your way. I get it. It happens. You move on. The sun is still going to come up tomorrow. Like, and this team still has a chance to be really good and to still do what they want and to win a Super Bowl. But doing stuff like that isn't going to help your cause. And it shouldn't. You know? It was just really done by Brian Branch. I hope he never does it again. But knowing his history, he might. And if he does, you may just have to cut him. And it's sad to say. I love because like Danny Cable said, I love Brian Branch. He's a great defensive player. He's made a lot of plays for this team. But he's got to do better than that. He has to. And you know what? If he does end up getting suspended for the game for Monday night, I'm gonna be really, really upset and angry. More than you know, because we need Brian Branch, and that's gonna really upset me if that happens. Anyways, that's today's show. So, like I said, I didn't really want to do this show today because of what happened over the weekend. It was just a disastrous weekend for Michigan sports. Just one of the worst weekends ever in Michigan sports. Yeah, I mean, just not a good weekend. But hopefully, better days are ahead. So we'll be back later this week with a Lions preview against the Bucs. We'll update you on a couple other things as well with the Wings and what they're doing, and we might get some some more MLB MLB playoff updates. See how their playoff is doing so far. We might talk about the NBA a little bit too because the NBA season is right around the corner, so that's exciting. We still look. Now that baseball is somewhat over, at least for the Tigers, doesn't mean that we stop. Same with the Lions or the NFL. We're still going to talk about sports first and foremost because I'm a sports fan, and we will continue to do that. But anyways, that's the show, guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I will catch you guys later. Have a good one.